This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to yet another installment of the show. This episode features a chat with Tim Gauci, who is in the Melbourne-based outfit Primitive. The catalyst for the chat with Tim is due to the launch of a new EP from the lads titled With the Rats and the Snakes, and it'll see the light of day on August 12th, 2022. Soon, you'll listen to the chat, but before we get there, I have selected the title track for your listening pleasure. It's an absolute banger. Something else I want to add about the conversation though, yes, of course we talk about the EP, but it's also notable because we dive into some chit-chat about Metallica. It turns out we've both got some points of view. We don't always see the band from the same perspective, but you know, it's always worth having a bit of a talk about the biggest band on the planet with someone who knows their shit, and Tim certainly does. So here's the EP's title track, With the Rats and the Snakes, and once it's done we'll dive into the conversation. Enjoy. How's the promotion in general been for the band? How have you found it?
It's been great. I mean, look, we're a local band. I would consider ourselves as a local band, but there is a big difference when you do set yourself goals and you do strive yourself to be not a local band. So I like to have the attitude of making sure we're presented as professionally as possible and not just some pack of rat bags, which we are. There's no doubt about that. But we like to do it in the best way possible. It's just making the effort. So it's been a noticeably increased recognition with this EP. We've been a band for we've been a band for about 6 years to the public knowledge. So 2016 was our first show. 2017 was our first EP. Did a single in 2019, and then the obvious thing happened when we're all at home. And I know for me personally, I wasn't in no creative space, but to come out of it now and have some songs and people have really grabbed onto that and really enjoyed the track that we've got out, and it's been great. It's for what our local sort of status is. I think I can speak for all of us in the band that it's been somewhat overwhelming, because you don't know what to expect and you don't necessarily do it for the praise or for whatever, but you just want to do it for yourself. So, but for people to really go, this is great. This is a step up from the first one. I've heard a lot of that, and that's a really nice compliment, because it's goes to show all the effort that's been put into it, and people are noticing what the intention is in it. So it's been great.
Yeah,
I don't know if I answered the question, but I just rambled on there. But it's been.
It's good. Ramble on. It's all good. You sort of answered one of the questions I had later on, so I'm going to save it and we'll see how we go. But sure. the point I'd like to make with the Rats and the Snakes, which is the name of the new EP. Look, for my ears, you combine extreme metal tendencies with metalcore flavored groups like, your Triviums, that sort of thing, with a dash of no bullshit heavy acts like Lamb of God. Am I on point there, do you think?
Absolutely. It puts a smile on my face just to hear that. I think it's been pretty evident in previous releases and pretty evident within our sort of internal camp amongst the band members that Lamb of God, Trivium especially, those two bands are huge influences to us, and we like to make sure that is known, and to get those vibes of, we get black and thrash a lot, we get thrash, we get heavy metal, we get like a Pantera vibe as well. So there's a lot of different things that we get, but it's great to hear that Trivium Lamb of God style and putting our own sort of spin on it, vocally and with the riffs and with the drumming especially as well. It's great to hear those resemblance or reference points.
Well, it's interesting too, because I had a chat to Joe Haley a couple of interviews ago, and I was listening to a lot of Psychroptic, and your album was almost the next one after that. There was one or two in between, but there was a lot of similarities, I've got to say. So I think that's where I find the extreme metal side of things come from. So you've clearly got your ear to the ground with some of the extreme, the genuinely no bullshit extreme stuff as well.
Psychroptic especially for the song that just came out, that pre-chorus that we've got, I felt was very Joe. That was inspirational, because I was listening to Frank and the other guitarist, where sort of the riffs sort of begin, or the songs begin, at least in this stage. I felt that was like, I was like, oh yeah, that's our, you find little reference points. I'm like, that's our Psychroptic riff. Well, that's the part that I reference a lot. Well, the band I reference a lot. So yeah, exactly right. I think those guys especially, it's just, take no prisoners attitude type deal. It's just riffs and it's relentless. And there's a lot of that we incorporate, or we like to incorporate our own version of it.
I never thought I'd see a day where extreme metal was so broadly accepted, that. And to hear that it's just becoming part of the mix of what a lot of heavy metal bands are doing. I had a chat to the bassist from Conjurer recently, and they're a band that are taking it right up to the line before you start to sound like Portal and those noise acts. And they're playing on the biggest stage like Wacken and the European festivals who I always forget the name of.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing something similar.
I think it's, at least from my analysis, or just from my being a punter or a fan of heavy music, and Australian bands especially, I wouldn't say a trend, but it's just like it's the norm to be the heaviest as possible, and that real wall of sound type sort of crush production type deal. And I say that in the best way possible. It's like it's cool to be abrasive and heavy and relentless. I think we don't have really. We've got a bit of it, but I don't think it's as intense as bands out there right now. But for that to be the norm at the moment, I think it's great because it leads to everyone else to do their own thing. And it's opening the world and being more like the real heavy thing is more accessible, which I find amazing.
Just out of curiosity, how did you hook up with Dicey and I suppose Reno as well?
It was just through our research of wanting to get some promotion out and wanting to really make sure people hear this one and get our name out there. So I think Dicey's been obviously been a veteran in the industry in Australia for a while, and he's well known. And I just saw the cult etiquette sort of thing online and said, oh yeah, these are cool guys, and they match with the bands that we want to play with or have done some stuff before, being Psychroptic. So yeah, it was really just research, and we found them to be the most relevant to our sound. And yeah, getting the right people to listen to it.
Yeah, it's a smart way of framing it the way you just did then. Going with the people that are like the bands that you want to play, that are already in with the bands you want to play with. I don't know why more people don't do that.
It's yeah, I think there's obviously, as we know, there's a lot of sub genres in metal. So it's kind of finding your way through it all pretty early, I think, is a good thing. And just knowing where you fit, or at least where you want to be, I think, and finding those paths would be the most effective way of getting your name out there. If we did it with someone who ideally or primarily dealt in the pop world, I don't think we would get as far as if we dealt with someone like Dicey. So I'm really happy with the choice that we made there, and he's made it very easy for us and gotten on to talk to like-minded people like yourself. So it's been a great experience. It's the first sort of real run of interviews and things that the band has experienced. So it's been fun to do so.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah. Yeah, you certainly got it going on from the quality of sound perspective and the songwriting. So here's the question that I think you might have answered earlier, but I'm going to ask it, which is that I'm not familiar with your back catalogue. So I did listen to a couple of the songs on, I think it was YouTube or Spotify this morning. But in your opinion, in what ways has your sound evolved from, say, the last release to what you're doing here with the Rats and the Snakes?
I just think it's a real, at least for me personally, because it can be different for, all of us in the band. It could be just, someone wrote it and it was cool and that was it. But for me, I probably have a tendency of overthinking, and I really, really looked at what we did last time and wanted to just really pick at what was the strengths in it. And what I found in the first one, which was, I think, a really great first EP. There's no, I'm not sort of complaining about what we've done, but you can definitely see like, oh yeah, I probably would want to do some shorter songs or trim the fat or make sure the vocal lines were a little more, maybe a little more interesting to the ear and really hone in on what we want to do vocally. So I guess the difference between the two is I guess the songs are shorter. I don't think there's a real loss of the amount of riffs. The vocals are different in the amount of layering they have, but different voices that I found within the studio. Big shout out to Chris Themelko at Monolith Studios, who recorded these tracks and really helped me find different voices. Before it was kind of just like one pitch sort of thing, but I really wanted to make sure there was some variance, and I almost found like a couple of new voices that I'll move on with future recordings and live stuff. So it's definitely, I think, in a nutshell, it's just a more mature version of what we've done. We've had the songs for a little bit longer, so I could sit with them and go, oh yeah, that's cool, or this is too long or too short, or I don't think we need this, or we need something like this. So yeah, it's just assessing what we did and just really condensing it to a more cohesive project.
I can hear that, yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Chris too, because I've interviewed him before, and he's a very congenial fellow. So, and I've got to compliment you both, because it might be one of the best. You both, because obviously it's a collaboration when you do these things, but you might have pulled one of the best local band sounds that I've ever heard. Everything. The compliment here is that you've gone into extreme metal territory, but I can hear everything, and that's over iPhone speakers, because I've got kids, right, and in the mornings it's bedlam. But I have it on in the background, and they usually say, "Shut up, Dad, turn it off," But I'm like, look, I have to put it on in order to see which songs jump out. That's the way I do it, because if it can jump out whilst I'm that busy, great. But you and Chris make a bloody good team.
Absolutely, and I got to give credit to Tom Cadden as well at Violent Sound. He did the mixing and got the tones and made sure there was that real punch and a real low end and tightness in the guitars. So there is that aspect as well that we want to thank him for and give him a shout out as well, because I think he smashed it. But in that recording process, at least for me, I know it can be somewhat daunting for vocals, because I'm not considered. I don't call myself a vocalist or a singer. It was kind of like, I'll play the riffs and we need someone to yell some words over it. So I've done some versions of vocals, but I'm really still honing in on what I want to sound like. And Chris has helped since the first release, since 2017. Of let's do this, let's do that, let's do that, and I'll sometimes be stubborn and I'll say no, and then I'll go, all right, cool, and then it ends up being mad, like it ends up being sick, and I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. Those in the spot moments when you're recording are very important, and Chris very, very much helps keeping that spirit without over analyzing and just going, yeah, that's cool, do that, and I'll just kind of be worried, and then it's there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. What's the scene like in Melbourne? A lot of the metal bands that I've spoken to over the past 5 years that I've been doing the show come from there. I'm just going to pick a few names: Riley Strong, Andrew Hudson. You mentioned Chris. There's a bunch of others. The guys in the Gloom in the Corner. Do you all sort of meet up occasionally in a pub and sort of share war stories, or do you sort of exchange messages and comments over Messenger?
I know Riley, I know Hudson, I know Chris. I don't think I've met any of the guys in Gloom as of yet. We saw them. The band went and saw Fit for an Autopsy and saw Gloom support. I can't say there's been many social events in where we've gone and caught up at the pub, but we've hung out at shows and had a chat. But you know each other online and you talk here and whatnot. Especially the last couple of years, it's been pretty. Obviously stuck at home, so haven't had that full chance yet. But yeah, every time we catch up, it's always a good talk. Me and Hudson always have a nice cuddle and hello, and as I do with Chris. So metal's absolutely great in Melbourne in regards to there's so much talent and there are so many good people in it, and everyone is just here to have a good time and play some riffs. So there's no room for anything else other than that.
Yeah, it's a shame about Desecrator, but I suppose then Hudson can focus on Harlot. Harlot are equal to Desecrator, in my opinion, as a band. They're
both amazing bands, and they have their strengths, and they do it very well. Desecrator is a household name in thrash, and I wish them all the best. Riley knows. Riley's, I think, I don't talk to Riley too much, but I think we've got the same Hetfield fanboy isms going on. So
yes.
I'm not going to, I can't knock a dude for wanting to be, wanting to possess that same sort of presence. And, I'm with him. He's just taller than me. He's got, he's got to be a tall guy, and I'm not. So he's got that over me.
He's got that leering menace about him in the skullet, hasn't he? He just looks like he should be playing thrash metal, shouldn't he?
Yeah, he's perfect for it.
Just about the EP again, then what would you say if you were forced to pick a song? What's your favourite cut?
Right now, it's a song called "God Is Beneath Us." That'll be a single later down the track. That's the absolute sort of aggressive banger at the moment. Rats was for quite a while, considering we did the video and it was the first single. But I think that's perfectly encompassing on what we've done and what we want to do, and it's a good song, and it's a good scene setter. But God Is Beneath Us is a great sort of, it's very thrashy, very heavy, good groove middle section. Frankie does a great solo. The drums on it are amazing. Everything on it is just like, it's hard to pinpoint the weak bits. So I'm very excited for that to come out.
I've had a couple of conversations with people over the past 18 months now about this, really since the pandemic kicked in and we couldn't play live. And obviously I'm a musician with this stuff here behind me. I mean, I've only just started playing again. Can you believe it? Just because DJs and bloody duos sort of started taking up all of the stages that bands were typically allocated. But what are your thoughts is probably the best way of framing it about the idea of albums and the traditional way you release things versus content? And I know the guy from Spotify has talked a lot about that, and I in particular think this affects bands that are yet to be really established, if you know what I'm saying. So do you guys talk about the idea of content? Because I think you've got a very strong content game, by the way. I think you're on point with that. But is that the focus, do you think, or do you still think in terms of albums?
Thank you for that, because it's a conscious effort to make the visuals as cohesive as the music. So I appreciate you saying that. In regards to visuals, or in regards to content, as you say, it's definitely a necessity. I don't know if it's a welcome necessity. I would much rather put my energy towards a whole bunch of songs, whether it's an EP or whether it's an album, and then not worry later about what reels we need to do and that sort of stuff. Like, I really want to make sure that our visuals are as top notch as possible. But it does get a little like overwhelming when you really have to worry about each particular platform for each particular photo and video, and they're all different algorithm hacks in that stuff. And I'm still learning about it. I don't know near as enough as I want to. It gets pretty stifling and kind of overwhelming when you have to think about that a lot, because that takes more time than music, in my opinion. Like, you're writing the songs, you make an effort to, obviously you put all your energy in that, but there's definitely maybe a little bit more of maybe that's just not knowing it enough yet, but it's more of an effort to make sure that stuff is right, where the music is I guess comes quicker and it's easier to have a finalized say on that. But I mean, with content, it's just changing every single day. Like, as an inside sort of thing, when we started the campaign for this, release days were on Fridays, and now they're Wednesdays or Tuesdays all of a sudden. I've just noticed a bunch of like new stuff coming out on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'm like, oh, great. Now like something else so you need to sort of worry about and just overanalyze for no reason. So it's just constantly moving. I think it is a necessity. It's great that bands are embracing it and doing what they're doing and finding new things to get themselves out there. Although if it wasn't there and it was just music, video, art, I would be very happy with that. But that's not the world. So it's I don't know. It's weird, because at the same time, as I ramble on about this, I love the fact that you can have your own image and you can control it your way with all these things at your disposal. It's all free. Instagram's free, Facebook's free, YouTube's free for now. But until there's something they want to fork out of us. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird, man. It's strange, because as I said, it's good and can be really annoying at the same time.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the break-even point. I'd like someone from Twitter or any of the social platforms, Meta, aka Facebook and Insta, and then Google, aka YouTube and Google, but Twitter as well, to come out and tell us, okay, so if you spend, here's the break-even point. If you spend 10 grand with us a year, we'll guarantee that it'll go to this many eyes, and from this we work out that you'll get this many people engaging with you, which should lead to this much volume of sales, this sort of thing, because it is important, because you are putting a lot of money into what I know I do with what I do. You clearly do with what you do, but it's very opaque, isn't it? And I studied it at uni, and I've got to say it was my worst subject by far. I barely got a credit, and it confounded me. We had to do an immersive program. I can't remember what the name of it is, but we had to sell. If you've not studied any marketing, there's this bloody program, and you got to do social media marketing on selling cameras,
right?
And it's a a simulation environment. It's got another name, but I'm going to call it a simulation environment. And it's hard. I mean, it's extremely difficult to work out what will give you the hits and the clicks based on what the algorithm is asking for, but it doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies to what we're doing here.
Yeah, no, exactly right. It's kind of like wildfire, and you hear these things of what will work and what doesn't work and what's the new thing to do, and it's a endless race to try and get yourself out there. And if you do the wrong thing and it squashes the algorithm or squashes your reach because it didn't meet the algorithm rightly, it can just be really like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I just want to play music. So if we get to a point, if this band gets to a point where we can have someone to do it, that'd be amazing. But at this stage, it's very much done in house, and at the same time, I love it. But then it's like to have the answers to know what I'm doing would be absolutely great. Have like you said, just give me the outline. Tell me what I need to do or what I need to spend, and tell me what it'll give me, and that will be a lot easier other than throwing money and stuff and figuring out along the way.
Well, what I've noticed is there's this tendency for the people that work at these companies and their so-called experts to say you've got to produce content that people want to see. Okay, so I get that. So consequently, when I turn off my filters or what have you, and especially I notice on Instagram, I don't know what's been going on Instagram. Believe me, I don't dive into any of this content, but I've been getting a lot of chicks in bikinis at the gym.
Right.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
It's like, I don't know, this stuff gets millions of clicks, but I mean, is that what we're reduced to as humanity?
I mean, as for, I think it's more of the fact that maybe so many people look at it. It's just the natural thing. It comes the natural thing to come on your explore page when you don't use it. I know that I don't necessarily search for things, and when I do search for things, like whether it be, I don't know, Star Wars, guitars, skateboards, or whatever. If I'm looking for something in particular, or bands, related stuff will come up on that explore. But if I don't do it for like a month or two, I get the same thing, and it's just like, I didn't look at this, and I don't necessarily want to look at this. Why are you showing it to me? and if that's the staple of what everyone's looking at, or if that's the staple of what they think everyone's looking at, then it weirds me out.
God help us. Yeah, I know. Like, it's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. We all love beautiful women, right? But at some point, all for it. But it's like, for God's sakes, it makes me look like as though I've been searching for this shit constantly. And I can tell you, I haven't been. I've got this Cradle of Filth, Chronicles of Filth, or what have you, going on, where I'm interviewing a lot of the ex-band members. So I try and not, when I say track down, not in a weird way, I just try to find former Cannibal Corpse members like Rob Rousset, these sort of guys that have been out of the spotlight for 30 years in a lot of instances, and just say, hey, do you want to come on the show? We talk, give you editorial oversight. There's no pressure. We're just going to talk about the old days, the days when I was a kid coming through. That's where I'm fascinated with a lot of the thoughts and feelings of people when they're in the moment back then, if they can recount what's going on there. So I think that I'd be getting, I do notice when I type in Rob Rousset for a couple of hours or whatever. Yeah, sure, I get a lot of the Chris Barnes Cannibal Corpse clips coming back up. But then they quickly fade away, and then I get the chicks in rollerblades falling into the surf and stuff, and it's like, what the hell's going on? But, as I say, I'm just trying to figure out, like we all are trying to figure out how we can make sense of the bloody algorithm.
Yeah, I think it's very strange. I don't know what it's going to come of it, but the only thing I can do is research as much about it as possible and try and get away from it. But, I don't know. It is what it is right now? I guess it is.
I suppose so. Yeah. I can't think of a better way to put it, really. I say that a lot about things. It is what it is.
Yeah, especially
it's how it is. So, hey, what about issues and challenges that the band has faced? Again, we might have addressed it with the social media side of things. God knows it's that important. But did you have any serious issues and challenges, particularly through the pandemic and with the recording of the EP, that you had to overcome?
Me personally, in regards to creativity and wanting to do stuff, I found it very hard, just as a personal take on that. Issues within the band and recording during all that, we were about to record, I think it was the day of, we were going to record drums, I think. We went into a lockdown. And then I think we went into a lockdown maybe day 2 of guitars. So it was wildly... And then vocals happened like once every couple days, and then we had to stop for another lockdown. And then I don't think we did it for another couple months. I don't exactly remember the timeline, but yeah, I feel like looking back, every single part of the recording process got stopped by a lockdown, which was wildly frustrating. But Chris was very obviously lenient in the fact that, shifting times and making sure we got stuff done. Exactly. So it wasn't anyone's fault in regards to changing and whatnot. So yeah, it was at the same time, it was, again, another is what it is moment, and we just had to deal with it. And luckily enough, we kind of live close to Chris for studio staff. And yeah, it wasn't too challenging in the fact that of moving things around. Chris was very good with us and that aspect. And we got everything we needed to get done. If the COVID stuff didn't happen, we'd probably have this out a year before, but again, it is what it is. But yeah, look, in regards to, any other issues we did the band recording the stuff, no, it was apart from those time changes, everything was very smooth, which was great. Yeah. Cause I think we're pretty, in regards to our recording process and the things we need to do to be ready to record, everything was fine.
Yeah, you certainly lived through it down there. There's no doubt. I mean, we were a bloody, what do they call it, hermit kingdom here for a bit too, for a year and a half. But look, I'm loath to invite you to comment on politics because God knows I get people messaging me afterwards saying, don't do it. No. To be honest, I tell people to fuck off. It's my show. We'll talk about whatever me and the guests want to talk about. If you don't want to listen to it, don't listen to it. It's up to you. But yeah, I mean, looking at it from afar, I mean, I just can't believe that bloody Daniel Andrews is potentially going to get back in at your next state election later on this year. It blows my mind for the reasons that he was able to lock down a population, and your police force looks like a bunch of bloody Gestapos anyway, dressed in all black like they were, and the acts of violence that were committed on people that were protesting. I mean, you got Black Lives Matter protesting, fine. You've got people protesting against a pandemic, nope. I mean, it was just a blatant misuse of authority, in my opinion.
Yeah, I look, to be honest, I'm not your best guy when it comes to the political side of life, mainly because I don't want it to overshadow anything creative or anything fun, because that 2 years was not exactly fun, watching the bad things that had happened and the decisions that were made that, led people out of jobs and led people in serious mental anguish and financial anguish.
Exactly. Yeah, and 100%.
There was obvious signs of that, and it's infuriating for people to go through that, and all being stuck at home and feeling the way a lot of people feeling did is it's not fun. And again, not to go into it too much, but like I can't see what, and I'm not the guy, I don't have a better option, but like I don't see what exactly benefited us being locked. The way it happened, it was just like it just didn't make sense. But easy to throw stones, I guess. But in saying that,
unless you're a hardcore member of the psychotic loony left, I know there's a lot out there. Oh, they're just very loud. Maybe there's not a lot. They're just very loud and very active on Twitter. I mean, it was a psychotic what you all went through down there. And we locked everybody out to the extent where dying people died without family by their bedside. It was fucking stupid. I mean, the cure can never be worse than the actual thing the problem is trying to solve, right? Yeah, I mean, my grandfather died just before all that happened, and there was a moment in time where they're like, "Oh, we don't think you can come in." It was like it was a nursing home. Yeah, and I think we all just looked at each other like, "No, we're coming in. No, we're already in. We're walking in right now. That's not happening." So I couldn't imagine how they would have felt going through something like that. So yeah, man, it was just a horrible time, and I wish a lot had happened differently. When we're talking about shows, I mean, this is what metal bands do. This is, as a metal fan, as a metal band, that's our fire pit. That's us going back to, back to our roots, so to speak, as primordial beings, and just forgetting about all that shit, pandemics and all that sort of stuff, being able to play again. Do you have a favourite memory within the band from a show that you've performed?
One we've performed? Many. I mean, we've, in the 6 years we've doing it, we've done We've done a small Japan run, which I really enjoyed. We did 4 back-to-back shows with Origin and The Crown, and there were really great, amazing bands. Watching those bands was really amazing, and meeting those guys were really amazing. Obviously, Japan is an amazing country, so everything about that was just the best. We supported Max and Igor Cavalera at 170 Russell here in Melbourne, which was sold out and absolutely packed when we opened it, and that was amazing because we're huge fans of those guys. I'm trying to think of we supported Psychroptic, and just I don't know if Lachlan, our drummer, wants for me to tell everyone, but he actually played with a tilted pelvis. He had horrible back issues, and we were so close to going. Like, he's like, I can't play. Like, he couldn't move, and we were like, obviously we want him to feel good, but it was a great show at the same time, and he pulled through. He did it, and we've never forgotten that moment. So there's a lot of moments that I go, that was amazing, that was really cool. The tilted pelvis was probably one of my not favorite, because that sounds horrible that he was in such pain, but
memorable. It's a memorable gig.
It's a memorable recovery as well. And then we played, like, without tooting my own horn, we played great. It was like the best we've ever sounded, and we were at Max Watts as well. So just a great stage and a great sound. So it was we were definitely buzzing by the end of that one, for sure.
Did you end up meeting Max and Gloria?
No, actually, I was going to try and sort of sneak in or whatnot, because 170's in. They've got their like the main acts upstairs and their backstage.
Yeah.
And
a bit like Crowbar used to be like here, yeah.
Right. We were lucky to get. I mean, we got this room that I think we didn't even leave, because we were just like, we got a room, we got free water and like water bottles, and this is like, it was so sick. But yeah, no, I unfortunately didn't get to meet them, but I watched the show, which I was equally, pleased about.
Yeah, I think I've inadvertently drawn Gloria's ire when I've obviously done a lot of interviews and conversations, and one of them was with Derek. And very innocently, I always find the things that blow up the most on the show, that Blabbermouth and the PRP and metal injection and all that stuff pick up, they're always I want to say completely unintended. You couldn't even pick it. You couldn't pay me $10 or $20 before an episode to say that question's the one that's going to blow up and become the thing that gets everybody into shit. But I asked Derek, I think, what was the question? Why he thinks people keep talking about a reunion with Max in the band, because it's clearly never going to happen. I don't think it will. It's been 25 years, almost 30 years now. Can you believe it? Yeah. And I'm a big old school Sepultura fan, and I quite like the new stuff too, so I don't even care if it happens or not. C'est la vie. But I asked him that question, and he says, it's because, people are sort of attached to the old days. And he said, I understand. It's one of those things. He just answered the question. If you know Derek, he's a lovely fella. He's just completely different to his onstage demeanor, which is ferocious. And, it got picked up by Blabbermouth, which then Gloria did a big rant on Facebook about, saying, fuck you, Derek, you're riding on Max's coattails. and I've heard and look, I definitely can't share who, but I've met locals up here that have cross swords with Gloria. Yeah, if you get her on a bad day, you get her on a bad day. But then I've met most of her family too through the interviews. Richie Cavalera and Igor, the namesake of his uncle, as well. Lovely people. Max, I've interviewed about five times, I think. Lovely fella, and I even met him when I was a young fella, when I had hair down to here in Los Angeles. And a lovely guy too, like just randomly bumped into him. Awesome guy. And it's just one of those things, I think, where, I'm prepared to put it down. If you meet somebody on the wrong day, then watch out.
Yep. Oh, I mean, that's life in general. If you see me in the office and I'm grumpy, watch out. So, or anyone in the band room who's had a bad day, or it is what it is. We're all people with bad days and whatnot. But look, I imagine, but I'm on good days, I imagine the Cavalier crew being quite sweet. So, I mean, it was an amazing experience, that show, and watching them side of stage and being a part of it, I think was pretty cool. So,
Origin are an amazing band as well. I can see why you guys would go hand in glove together in terms of the show.
Great guys. Obviously, there is some ties with Psychroptic as well, which was pretty cool. But I mean, watching watching those guys every night, and then like most of the songs starting with a snare, it's just like like it was just like it goes to show that easy people make things look easy, but it's done with nothing but effort. Like it's hard to make it that easy, to make it look that easy. If that, I don't know if I'm making any sense there, but
makes complete. I'm a muso, so it makes complete sense to me. You're so well rehearsed and so well drilled because of the tens, even thousands of hours of preparation. That's what it comes down to. Perfect practice makes perfect.
For sure, absolutely, and seeing that sort of precision, seeing that practice come to play, was just inspiring to watch that every night, no matter how many hours those guys had sleep or, the travel or whatnot. At least like the show was on every night, and it was just amazing to see. So, but yeah, great musicianship, and we got along with the guys very well. Frankie did, especially in our band. So, yeah, we were pleased as anything to experience that in Japan with those guys.
Psychroptic have jaunt across North America coming up it's a bit over a month. So they're playing Canada. When I say North America, it's Canada and the United States. Are you guys in a position where you could sort of down tools with your day jobs and all the rest of it and take advantage of a tour? If, a band at the level of Fallujah or Origin even invited you over there to do something like that?
I think if any of those guys invited us for a beer, we'd probably tools down and drive and fly there. But in regards to look, I can speak for myself. If we got an amazing offer like that, and if someone was like, come do a few shows, come do 3 months, whatever. Like, North America tours are pretty extensive, and there's like 30 shows in a row, so you got to do it properly. I think there would be no doubt that everyone in this band would go, yeah, let's do it. Like, we have to do it. There's no denying that you have to do something like that. It makes you a better band, and it makes you get an experience that you'll never get anywhere else, and you have to grab it every chance you can to be on a caliber bill like that. So absolutely, as soon as someone goes, we want you to do this, we'll absolutely do it. We'd be more than grateful, more than honored.
Yeah. It's I reckon it'd be difficult to do the whole van thing, but if you had the nightliner and you had maybe, obviously you've got to travel overnight between gigs, because that's just the way these things are set up. If you got like 25 shows in sort of 32 days, you can't do it any other way, right? But wouldn't it be a wonderful experience for you guys? Because you've certainly got the chops to do it.
Thank you. That means a lot. I think if you're in that position and you know what you're doing, I think you don't have a choice other than to be the best you can be. And I think you do the first 4 shows in a row, I think you'd be a well-oiled machine, especially for us. I mean, we practice probably more than we should, or not more than we should, but more than anyone would think. For doing one show, we lock out a room for a month and make sure we have the best tight show
That's
possible.
So good to hear. Really?
Yeah. I mean, we got it. And I think it maybe playing to the primitive name, we don't necessarily play with, not necessarily, we don't at all play. Right now, we don't play to clicks. We don't have any sort of backing tracks or anything like that. So it's really, we have, and that's probably because we don't really need them right now, but we don't have like a digital sort of setup, in-ear monitors and things like that. It's really bare bones when it comes to our live show. So we have to be that tight, and we don't have anything to really fall back on in case there is anything that goes wrong. It's just like, here's the amp, here's the guitars. We're relying on the drummer, and here we go. So, and we're lucky enough to have an amazing drummer that will do that for us. So, it's just, I don't even know I've totally forgot what the question was, but.
No, you've answered it really well. And you brought something up that I don't think of. Maybe it's been brought up in the past, but I can't remember when. My philosophy has always been perfect practice makes perfect, to the extent that you can play the song solo. The band could be isolated or what have you, and if you were all playing solo, muted, you'd all start and finish at virtually the same time. I'm not talking about mistakes. Mistakes happen; they're acceptable. What have you? Errors and like mistakes are in the moment. Shit. Errors are just, I don't know the part. That's just like, you don't know your shit. But the whole idea that for the non-musicians out there, oftentimes you've got to use in-ears on stage because the on-stage monitoring is garbage.
Yes.
But and most of the time it is garbage and it's not sorted properly and it takes half the show. And if you're playing for like 25 minutes, sometimes as an opening act or what have you, you haven't got that situation. You just don't. You've got to put on I imagine the Max Cavalera one, the Max and Evil Cavalera Conspiracy. Oh no, it wasn't Cavalera. It was they played the not Schizophrenia. What did they play? I know the show you played at though, because I remember seeing you guys down there on the list.
Ashes of Rise.
Was it it was a Rice? Yeah, it was a Rice. Yeah, it was. Yeah. But you literally sometimes it's just it's like being in a white noise vortex when you're up on stage.
Yeah, I mean, like at least for me, because I'm right behind. I'm right in front of Lachlan, our drummer. At most of the stages, all I can hear is a cymbal just in my ear. So we probably to our own naivety and whatnot, we don't have that sort of setup just yet. And we've been playing, with the Japan stuff, we were able to get some amps and we were able to get a sound that we could easily work with. But it's all we know at the same time. So I guess once we get in-ear monitors, things are going to be a lot better and we'll probably play a lot better because they are beneficial for everyone's health and their ears and their live show as well. So I don't know. It's just something I think we'll do. We need to do it. We need to sort of step up the spec in the camp, and it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, I think punters, without realizing it, they appreciate it. When bands are well drilled and have got their shit down pat, and you booked out a rehearsal room for a month prior to a show, I can tell. Okay, I don't know the detail, but I can tell you're well drilled. So there's obviously a lot of preparation and practice that's gone into it. The last thing you want to do is turn up and the guys in the band are all looking at each other for when a change is supposed to happen. I can't stand that sort of shit.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were saying before. It's like if it looks easy, that's not because it's easy. That's because the band's locked in a room for a month and smashing out that set to make sure it looks easy as possible. So the easiest as possible. So I really pride ourselves on making sure we have. And not to say that in-ears are bad or whatever, but if we can play together, and as you said, if we can play the songs separately perfectly, there's just nothing that can go wrong. Besides us becoming deaf at 40, which is not too far away as time sort of waits for no one. So it's really that's really is the crux of a good live show, is just making sure you've got everything down pat no matter what happens. So. It's just been our vibe, and it always will, in a sense. It will always be a room over practicing, over analyzing, and making sure it's the best thing possible. Otherwise, there's just no point doing it. And me personally, it's just like that's been my vibe since I've known myself, but that doesn't make sense. But since I've been a
full-on muso.
Well, yeah, being a muso and just like working as well, it's like there's just no point in half-assing anything. You got to do it with 100% effort, otherwise you don't do it. So that's been my mentality for as long as I can remember, and we do that we do that a lot within the band.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'll put you on my next. Look, I don't put it on Spotify. Actually, I do put it on Spotify, but as a podcast episode. But I do it's incredible. I do this monthly music show, and unless I interview someone like someone prominent, really prominent, it'll be my most listened to episode by far. People have a hunger for new music. I don't know whether a lot of metal fans are really in tune with what goes on Spotify. I still think a lot of metal fans like curated playlists. They like someone to actually say why this song is important, that sort of thing. So you'll definitely be on the August edition now that I've got the cuts and the album. I try to put things on there after things have been released.
Yeah. No, thank you.
For obvious reasons. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that is much appreciated. I really appreciate your interest in doing this and getting us, to new listeners. I think metal is something that needs to be curated by the right people. And it's just something that is, look, I don't know, maybe because I'm not that in the world of, I'm a fan of hip hop and pop and a lot of different things, but I'm not fully in that world as much as I am in metal. But metal is a deeply personal thing. And if no one and people in the outside of that just don't get that, and it can be weird to other people, but yeah, it's a deeply personal thing. And there are so many different things out there in metal, so it can be hard to sort of figure out what's going on. But yeah, it needs to be curated, needs to have actual thought put into those sort of things, because otherwise it becomes stale and it becomes the top flavor of the month. You know what I mean? It becomes like a top 40 thing, and no one wants that. No one in metal wants that. I don't want the generic same thing. You want some new stuff to happen, to come out and be exposed to different things. Sure.
Yeah, look, I'm just quickly, I'll make this point. You go to a lot of the Spotify best of lists or what have you, they've got the same old shit on there. And this is stuff I've listened to potentially thousands of times. Number of the Beast, Flight of Icarus, Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, all of the usual suspects. And it's like, dear God, really? I can't listen to it anymore. It's out of my, it's so embedded that if I listen to it, I'd get bored very, very quickly. But I know how I used to feel about it when I was a young fella. I just don't feel about it the same way now. I'm a bit different to most people like that. I honour the legacy, no doubt about that, but I prefer the new.
Great. I mean, and you got to think something about not embracing new things, whether that's in music or just anything else, I find quite weird. Going back to the social media thing, it's like you need to embrace it. As much as it can be a pain, new is good. And there are so many, in regards to music, there are so many amazing bands out there doing amazing things and sounding great and having great live shows. So no, you have to nod the masters, and let the people who are coming up have their spot as well. And that's happening. I think you'll find, I mean, obviously Metallica and Iron Maiden and stuff, they won't be headlining within the next
decade. I think they've got a decade in them. Certainly Iron Maiden. I mean, I just can't see them doing it in their 80s. If I'm not mistaken, how old would they be? They must be at least 61, 62.
They've got to be they've got to be early to mid 60s. Well, Metallica are coming up to 60s now, so
yeah, they're late 50s. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Dave Mustaine looks like his face is about to fall off, for God's sakes, these days. So, I mean, he looks like shit.
He's had a rough trot, Dave, but
he has. I think you know what I think it is. It's and this is what, God help me here. David Bowie, for example, he did a shitload of stuff. Let's face it. I mean, he's acknowledged it. I'm not saying anything that people don't know or can't research. Right. But once you do the damage when you're young, it stays with you, and it's common knowledge. Dave was a junkie for years.
Right.
Have you seen what the Chili Peppers look like these days?
I think I might have seen like one or two, because they're still rocking it shirtless, aren't they? They're doing it. They're doing it in the way they've done it for.
I wish they wore full suits, to be honest with you. To your point, I mean, they look like a bunch of paroled sex offenders at the moment. They look terrible.
Are you a Simpsons fan? Do you like The Simpsons?
Oh, I do, but I haven't watched them in, I've got to say, at this point, decades.
There's 90s, I'm going to refer. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to tell you. There's this bit where Troy McClure, who's like I don't think he's not really an A-list. He's like a C-grade celebrity.
Yeah, no, Troy. He's classic. Yeah. Hi, this is Troy McClure. Yeah, you might remember me from such and such. Yeah.
He's in a movie with the Muppets, and then he smiles, and there's like, why is that Muppet made out of leather? Like, that's what reminds me of the Chili Peppers in no shirt. They just look like leather. They look like all crunched up or whatever. I don't know, but that just reminded me of it. I just totally changed the subject about The Simpsons, which is something that I naturally do, but I get what you mean. I don't know. It's I don't drink. I don't partake in any.
I admire that. Gosh, wish I didn't drink, but yeah.
No recreational activities. So if I don't know. At the same time, I'm 31 and I look 16 still. So if that can continue with me when I'm 60, trying to play my riffs, I'll be happy with that.
Oh, look, the thing is, the Stones have looked the way they do now for at least 30 years, right? They hit about age 50 and they just didn't change. I mean, Keith Richards, he's long since looked like as though he's been shoved in an oven and left in there for too long. But I mean, they're still going. More power to them. But I mean, the Chili Peppers. The other thing too about the Chili Peppers, they sound like fucking garbage too. Like they're missing notes.
I look, more power to them, and I don't want to bag him for no reason. I've never been a huge fan of him. I can't really quite see the hype or the talent. But they're doing their thing and whatever. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't get their popularity. I've got to say, it's like I've long been on record in that I don't understand Metallica's post load popularity. But same thing with the Chili Peppers. It's like I get it. There's 3 albums there that I think are really good, but the rest of it you could probably throw in the bin. And look, I'm somebody who was so influenced by Fleas, and I want to be clear about his tone.
Yeah.
Okay. Doug Wimbish is my from Living Colour is my alpha and omega, but Flea's tone. That's probably why I play Galley and Kruger and I play Music Man basses, and I remember the ads from Guitar World and shit in the early 90s, and I was like, well, if he's playing them, and then when I saw Galley and Kruger for sale in the shops, I was like, I'll get that one, thanks. And I just stuck with it now for 30 years or whatever it's been, and I love his tone, there's no doubt, but his tone shifted over the years too. He's certainly doesn't have that wonderful tone that he had on Mother's Milk and even Blood Sugar Sex Magic and stuff, and he's shifted basses and stuff too, so he long hasn't played. I think he still plays Galley and Kruger. I could be wrong, but certainly Music Man basses. He played Modulus and a few others he's gone through. He's got his own brand these days. But, there's just it's more like a cult, isn't it, really, the way fans get invested in bands and they hang on to them. And it's like you can't talk to the average Metallica fan about why you don't like Metallica because fuck you, man.
Look, I don't want to expose myself. I'm probably that guy. Metallica I'm going to say it right now. I'll say Metallica are the best band in the world, and even through their tumultuous I didn't even say that word right. Even through the most
tumultuous
time. I mean, still can't say it. I find a gem in the shit. So we could
convince me. Okay, just on that point,
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, Jesus, here we go. All right,
but it's all up to. It's all subjective.
Yeah, it's all subjective. I totally get that, but this is the point of podcasts: is you're allowed to talk shit, right? We've got license to do that. So here we go.
I'll be here all night. I will do it all night. I don't care.
Hardwired to Self-Destruct is their second worst album. Argue against.
Second worst album.
Load is their worst. That's common knowledge. Oh, sorry. Sandanga is sorry. So I want to be clear here. I don't even count Sandanga as an album. Like it's just over. Just leave it. Lulu isn't a Metallica album. It's a collaboration.
That's separate. Yeah.
So not people have got to understand that it's just them farting in a bathtub, whatever. And that when so I just got to make this point quickly. I laughed so hard when I first heard James Hetfield going "Small Town Girl" whilst Lou Reed's yelling it while you're going, "I got my dick sucked by a colored man," or whatever it was he's talking about, and James is going "Small Town Girl," like it's like they're in two totally separate universes, and it's as if they've gone mad, and we just have to watch this train wreck unfold. But anyway, I digress.
No, real quick, it is weird to think when in any aspect to think when you're in a room and go that's really great, and then it ends up being that that's that. I would love to be a fly on the wall in those sessions and be like, That's good. Like, what's going on here? What's the vibe? It's just interesting to see people's creative perspective on sessions like that. When you hear back and things that you don't like, you go, I wonder what it was that went through their process or their sort of filter to come out with that. So
I blame Lars. I've got to be honest with you. I blame Lars because he's such a smart ass and he thinks he's European. And I mean, he might be European, but he's really American. But he tries to, he punches down on American culture. You know what I mean? Like he tries to, I'm Danish. It's a really Danish thing to do. It's like, motherfucker, you've been in the US for the past 45 years or something. You're about as Danish these days as I am Irish, and the same thing for you with Maltese or something. It's like you got the heritage, but you can't really say you're from that really anymore because you're embedded in another culture.
I've got the short temper and the short height to be connected to Malta, but that's really about it. To say that I'm, fully fledged a Maltese man, I don't know, but I don't know.
That's interesting. The Maltese, I was with a Maltese girl for about 7 years. I reckon they're some of the nicest people naturally that I've ever met. And that might have been my experience, but gosh, they're beautiful people. Yeah.
It was like there's a real contrast. We'll get back to Metallica real quick, but there's a real contrast with Maltese people in the fact that they're beautiful, caring people, and they love you so much that it looks like it's not that, if that makes sense. Really, just really invested and energetic in
No,
that.
I agree. Totally. It was my experience too. I mean, I was shocked at how, being an Aussie, completely Australian, I was really surprised at how, there are some cultures that don't accept Australians. Let's face it, it's just how it is. But the Maltese, they're completely fine. That there's a couple of Croatians do, Maltese do, there's a few others, of course, there. But there's some others where you do get a bit of a clash, let's face it. I'm originally from Sydney, and Melbourne's very similar to Sydney. And there's certain areas you just don't go, and you really shouldn't go to if you're an Aussie,
Right.
And but the Maltese people I just found were just beautiful.
Well, I'll make sure Dad knows that. And I'll see if he agrees with you or not.
Well, it doesn't count if you're from that nationality. It's like us being Aussies, right?
Yeah.
And we have a dig at other Aussies and say, I've done that sometimes. Especially, there was a period there I wouldn't interview Australian bands. It just got too weird.
Yeah, right.
It got really, I'm not saying tough, but they were talking shit about me between themselves on socials posts that they put up about episodes that I'd hosted. Yeah. And I was like, fuck this. I mean, here I am, especially at the time I had young kids. I'm exhausted. I was working. I still am working full time, but had a really tough job. I was an account executive for Telstra, and I was working. When I wasn't working, I was thinking about work. It was one of those jobs, and doing this on the side, and no, fuck you, sort of thing. And I just wanted to ban it. But look, I think we should get back to the Metallica, the conversation about Metallica. Yeah, I think you and I can talk about all sorts of things, but I think we should talk about Metallica. So convince me that they don't suck, and let's use Hardwired to Self-Destruct as the case in point. I think it's their second worst album behind Load. I actually quite like Reload. So over to you.
I think Hardwired to Self-Destruct is the best of album of songs that were never created in the first place. So it's an amalgamation of everything that they've done, and it's the rightfully so. It's the late 40s, early 50s, mid 50s, whatever, however old they were when they created it. It's multi-millionaire dad metal, and I'm all for it because that's them. In that moment, with that money, those resources, that studio, those tours, the backlog of masterpieces. I'm saying it confidently and with full honesty. Like, there's a lot of that have just flawless material. So, in regards to, I don't. It's kind of weird because it's Metallica. Like Hardwired is kind of like. I'm not going to say it's not an addition to the legacy, but it's kind of like after the legacy in a sense, if you get what I mean. Where it's
totally, yeah. If it was released or not, who cares? It's just sort of there.
It's like here it is. Here it is after everything you know about them. So it's kind of, that's what I mean by like the best of material that was never released, because you've got this Kill 'Em All to Reload. Well, Anger, I should say, Saint Anger, and Death Magnetic as well. I don't know. It's interesting. I think, I think Load will be an album everyone loves in like 5-10 years.
I can't agree with that. Sorry. Oh my God.
I'm telling you, it'll be this flawless rock record that everyone loves. Because I had a conversation about this today, actually. I just think bands who constantly evolve themselves and do not give a shit about what is happening outside of that, come out on top, whether whether people think it's bad or not, because everything comes full circle. Like Slipknot, for example, right? They've been Slipknot for as long as they've been around. They didn't pander to anything. They've stuck to their thing, and that worked for them. They've got their recipe. And it's like this. It's like they've got the legacy, and now this new album's going to come out. It's going to be everything you know about Slipknot, and it's going to be sick. It's going to be shit hot. And that there's nothing that can deny. Then you can't deny that. So for me, at least, it's like everything comes full circle. Every band that is in the top tier, whether they go through emotion at a time of having bad albums or whatnot, it's going to come full circle, and it's going to be cool. It's just not that time yet. I know that's weird to say, but it's
No, I respect your opinion. You're a great musician, so you're allowed to have whatever opinion. I've got to say, I divide sort of people up that way. If you're a muso, you can have any opinion you want, and it's fine. If you're a person on the street, it's usually like the amount of people that I've met at, not recently, I mean, not even for 10 years, I'm talking about a long time now, but go to a party, and especially when I had long hair and they'd say Cliff Burton's the best bass player ever, to go, no, it's too subjective to say that. But have you heard Steve DiGiorgio? And they go, Steve DiGiorgio sucks, man. It's like, have you heard Steve DiGiorgio? And they're like, I don't care about George Steve. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
go away, just fuck off. And there are so many. I get that with the biggest bands, like the biggest football teams, whatever. They're just fanboys and fangirls who are just dyed in the wool. And in this case here, the Metallica thing, it's like I've spoken to Cam Lee about Chuck Schuldiner. Chuck Schuldiner is held up as a patron saint these days. He's a very complicated man. He was a very complicated fellow.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to just about, not all, many band members. Okay, Steve, Cam Lee, Gene Hoglan, and they've all said the same thing, that he lovely guy in his moment, but he had his moments. He had other moments, like we all do. Okay, but the deification of people. Have I spoken to people around Cliff Burton? No, I haven't. So I shouldn't even go there and say that, because I haven't. But I can imagine from what I've read about Cliff Burton, he didn't take any shit from anybody, so he didn't like you. He didn't like you. Yeah. He didn't sound like a very agreeable guy at all, but because he was a bass player who looked like he should have been playing in Leonard Skinner or something, or Blue Oyster Cult or something like that, he's developed his own sort of, this cult of personality thing well before he'd passed away. And then when he did, it just his place on the dais alongside of Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and all those people. Kurt Cobain obviously came later, but my point is that it was all but assured. And I think he's been the patron saint of the band for so long that a lot of people sort of get into that vibe. But in terms of reviewing Metallica with a critical eye, absolutely the albums that Dave Mustaine helped inspire. So up until Master of Puppets, what's all there? Without those albums, metal, it might have evolved, but it probably wouldn't have been as big. They're like Iron Maiden. They're that important that they expanded metal's reach because they were so popular. But after that, I mean, do you think Black is an essential album in their catalogue?
I think, I was 0 when that came out, so I don't really know the impact it made when it released. But if I was to look back on it, I think maybe I look too far into it. A, as a Metallica fanboy, and B, as just like being in a band and just doing whatever you want. I think it is essential. It is an essential album in the fact that they did expand. They expanded their audience, and they expanded their audience to go back to their later albums. But I don't know if it's like not being there. I don't know if that album made heavy music cool then, or if it exposed other bands to be on the radio or whatever platforms that were out at that time. I'm not too sure what the pivotal impact it made at that moment. But if I was to look back and go, here are the albums of Metallica, Black Album needs to be in there as one of the classics, because it was defining for them. And the Black Album money that they still make brings us cool shit and makes them tour 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off in a private Australia very soon, hopefully. And I can see them at 60 and be happy.
Have you seen them though? Have you seen them live?
I've seen them 7, 8. I saw them.
Have clearly.
Seen them like 5 times in Melbourne. I went to Sydney, and I went to San Francisco to see S&M 2.
What did you think?
I am not the right guy to have this conversation.
No, it's cool. It's good to get your perspective on things, because I want someone to, you're doing a good job articulating why you like them. I just don't know whether I'm convinced that they're for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'm definitely not saying you got to like Metallica, because I would be running around tired, because I'm very passionate in that. But I enjoyed going to San Francisco for a week and watching Metallica twice. I think that was pretty amazing. But I fell in love with the S&M 1 album, I think. And, I think it's a, like top tier produced live album.
Oh my God. Yeah. We totally different views on this. Yeah. That's incredible. It's amazing.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a sonic abortion, to be honest with you. I can't even believe Michael Kamen put his name to it. I mean, I love Michael Kamen, and what he does with rock bands and stuff. He's long gone now for people who don't know, but the work that he did with on Last Action Hero on the soundtrack there and stuff. I mean, he's done film scores, all sorts of things. But it's, to me, okay, here's one of the songs off S&M. The Thing That Should Not Be, to me, sounds like as though they've just put it in a blender off S&M 1.
Yeah, I think.
Do you agree with that, or do you think can you make sense of it?
I get. I'm far too biased. I reckon I can understand the intention of it sounding the way it does. I think it's meant to be obnoxious, and it's meant to be in your gut uncomfortable. It's meant to be uncomfortable because that song is uncomfortably edgy for that time. It's not meant to be pretty. Like Bleeding Me, for example. Bleeding Me, Outlaw Torn, those big load and reload songs. All this, they had so much space for that to be pretty and for it to be atmospheric and for it to be what it is. But that song, it's just chuggy pretty much all the way through with some open stuff. And it's I think it's meant to be that guttural, uncomfortable is probably the word I would use, where it was intended to be that ugly. Me.
I think they got lazy. My view on that is that Lars committed them very early on to making an album a year from 1996 onwards, up until year 2000, I think it was, 1999. So he wanted, obviously Load, Reload, Garage Inc., and then S&M. And the proof to support my comments there, if it was a uni assessment, is that No Leaf Clover being the only song that was actually written and produced for that production, sorted for that production. That sounds pretty good.
Honest Human as well.
Yeah, I didn't think that worked that well. I thought No Leaf Clover, though, stands up to this day, and I think the proof is in the pudding that the band still plays it live.
I think, can you imagine what the rock album that would have came out if they kept going in like 2000? Like if there was an album.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Sorry, I know where you're headed. Sorry to jump in. Sorry, but I just want to make this point quickly. One of their best songs was that Mission Impossible song, I Disappear.
Yeah.
Because I've written, you can check on my website, I've actually written a big thing about the band because of that naff period between 1994 and the late 90s when they just seemed to, God knows what was going on. And that's when we didn't know at the time, but that's when the wheels fell off, because that's when Jason was really feeling ostracized. And it didn't start in the St. Angus sessions and that weirdo Phil Tail guy. Yeah. It had been building for years after the success of the Black Album. But I thought with I Disappear, if they'd kept on going in that vein and I think, tell me if I'm going to make the point you were going to make, and I'm sorry that I jumped in, but I'm so glad that I've met somebody and talking to somebody who's thinking this way about it, because, I too love, I listened to Master of Puppets for like a year straight, like every day. So that's how much of a fan I was. But I Disappear had all of the ingredients that they wish that they built on, but they stopped after that. Riffs built upon quasi riffs, and they were going in more of a rock direction. They'd sort of thrown the metal out the window, and they were just going, you know what, we're just a band that likes big production, big videos, Tom Cruise. Here you are, people. I wish they'd gone in that direction. I'd probably still be a fan.
Yeah, I think there would have been some amazing material if the deterioration around that time didn't happen. But look, I don't know. Anyone can sit there and say something's good, something's bad. If someone said, if Primitive became a band where we had 8 albums in the bank and on our belt, and we were doing a bunch of stuff, and someone said this period was shit. It's like, well, I don't know. No, it's not up for. No, that's not right. It is up for anyone to say what they think. But I just think there's like, when you start something when you're 18, it's going to be different when you're 35, right? Like Kill 'Em All, that era. What are they, 24 in Master of Puppets? No, yeah, 24, 25.
I think you're right, mate. They're certainly in their mid-20s, yeah.
And that's amazing. That's like some of the best metal out there in your 20s. That's flawless stuff. I wish I could write Master of Puppets when I was 24. You kidding? That's absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, and I think you get to a point where you're like, oh, I want to slow down and I want to do some rock stuff. And there's some things in there, like if Saint Anger was released by another band and it was cut in half in regards to its time, song times, that'd be some sick album from some band. But again, it's from Metallica, so you have expectations, you have standards. But I just think things are, and I'm being a fanboy, but things are different at that time. And whether if you don't like it, don't listen to it. If you like it, listen to it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I find maybe I'm being just overly optimistic about it, but I find gems in anything Metallica related. I don't think there's anything out that I'm like, that's not shit. It's just my perception is this, and then I go, okay, cool. Do I listen?
You can listen to. Okay, so I mean, I can't even compare your band's music to Santanga. You can't compare the quality. Like, it's just, I'm speaking as a fan, as a musical appreciator. We've just met, so I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. But I mean, look, if they'd released the music that you guys are doing right now with the Rats and the Snakes instead of Santanga, that style, okay, they wouldn't release the same, but that style. I mean, what can I say? I mean, I just can't. It's a pile of shit. Sorry, surely you agree with me to an extent. Like, Santanga is an epic failure on literally every level: production, songwriting, the package itself, even getting Pusshead or Pusshead or whatever he back in to do that dumb album cover. It's not a full-on Metallica album cover like what they had on. And they had the T-shirts. He did their T-shirts. Sorry, I get that, but it was underutilizing Pusshead or Pusshead. There was it was just everything about that album just is weird and wrong. Do you agree? Or
to a Metallica standard, I'd say that I would agree. It is not up to their standard. I would say there's many factors at that time. Seriously, I've got to say, I'm not the right guy to have this conversation with, because I find the human element in it, and that's, I don't know, that movie. I watched Some Kind of Monster probably like once every 6 months or something like that.
Oh my god! Yeah, I couldn't get through it.
I embrace that turmoil because it's an absolute shit fight of watching like three dudes just going at it and just like not knowing what the hell's going on. There's insecurities everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's so raw, and you're just like, well, no wonder Saint Anger. That's how Saint Anger came out. It's because James was in a rehab facility for a year or whatever, and God knows what happens in there. I don't want to be in that situation. Therapy alone would be a very hard thing to go through, and I don't know. I just think like that at that time was probably their best effort, and they probably could have done way better. But regarding the circumstances and at the moment at that time, that's what came out, and oh well.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, I cast a critical eye on things. Like my favorite band for years were Megadeth, and they lost me after. Certainly Risk is just a pile of dog shit. One thing I will say, Santanga is bad. It's atrocious. Mm-hmm. Risk is the fucking worst.
Yeah, right.
Risk is, Santanga is virtually unlistenable. Risk is unlistenable.
Yeah.
Okay. In 1999, I couldn't believe that Dave released that steaming pile of shit.
Yeah, right.
Risk is such a bad album. Like, you know why it's so bad? Dave didn't have the excuses that you so beautifully articulated that Metallica may have had. My views on Metallica is Santanga in that episode of the band's career could only have come about through blokes that had never had a real job. Okay. Totally disconnected from reality. Fucking Kirk walking around his ranch or, farm or whatever it was in Northern California, they're talking. It was just weird. Lars yelling at James this far away from his face saying, Stark. And it's like, what if someone spoke to me like that, I'd shove my bass in their fucking nostrils. You know what I mean? It's who talks to people that way and then films it and thinks it's okay to do that. And it's odd, man. It's like it's performance art to an extent. It was, the one thing I'll say this, like, it was around about the same time that weird The Osbournes was on TV as well. And I'm a huge Aussie fan, but, the musician Aussie, not the caricature of Aussie. And I was like, what is this shit? Where are we headed, people? And I was in my 20s at the time and I'm watching this stuff and I'm thinking, I don't care about what he has for breakfast. Can you just get back together with Bob Daisley and produce another killer Aussie style album a la The Ultimate Sin or Bark at the Moon? And, his latest material actually doesn't sound like that, but it sounds pretty good, I've got to say. I checked out, I'd always listened to it and, I'll leave Gus G out of it because he's a lovely fella, and I've had a couple of chats with him. I think certainly one chat with him. He's a good guy and great guitarist and all the rest of it. But sorry, I digress. We're talking about Metallica. I suppose, I just don't get the en masse support that they get when I feel like as though my point overall, if I could wrap up my point in a way, is that they take oxygen away from you guys. All these fans that could be listening to some of the newer and emerging acts that come through, I don't agree. I used to agree with Jamie Jasper. He said high tide raises all ships. I don't agree with that. I think there is a finite space, and Metallica take up a lot of it. So do Iron Maiden, I've got to say. And in a way, I wish they both fuck off, because I don't think they're producing vital and real music. Their tours, there are a lot of people out there that have, say, $300 a year to devote to going to a show, and they use it all up on these bands when they could be going and seeing you guys. Most of us live in democracies that listen to this. I've got listeners in Iran and stuff too. God bless them all, really. But, for those of us that are living on a budget, I wish that you go out, you get your 3 or 4 beers, go and watch the Primitives of the world rather than fucking hanging on to what Metallica's doing next.
I get that, yeah, and I think I feel like there's a change there. I mean, those headliners that we sort of mentioned before, or the point we mentioned before, it was kind of like I think there's a tide turning with that, and like Slipknot, for example, next in line to be the headliner that headlines for the next 10 years or however long, 5 years, whatever. Like Trivium, Lamb of Gods, Gojira, all that sort of stuff. They're just top tier. They'll be
there's a bunch. Yeah, you can see the bands that are going to come up and replace the Metallicas, and they're ready.
Parkway as well. Parkway Drive have become this stadium filling like anthemic band now that they headline Varken.
I think it's certainly, though they're a headliner. I don't know whether they headline Varken. I think they might have, but I'm with you. Like, to me, they're just down the road here, right? And they're at just outside of Byron, and I know people who know the guys who assure me that they're just as normal as the day before they got big. They're just as normal guys that you'd meet them at an airport and just think that they're traveling somewhere or what have you, tourists or what have you. But they assure me that they've not lost their heads and they're lovely fellas.
No, just as a sort of backstory, I work for a music wholesaler that does. We distribute ESP guitars, so I've dealt with the Parkway guys for a little bit, met them 1 or 2 times. Lovely dudes, and it was very weird seeing how weird in a sense that you thought they would be not who they
Dickheads.
are. Yeah, but there was just
not. Yeah,
like I'm there for ESP, right, and then like the whole band come and talk to us. It's like with no affiliation to the brand, they're just dudes who came, had a chat during their sound check, and it was just like this is amazing. Like, I wish if I ever got to a point where we're headlining something of that size or any size, I want to make sure I'm like those guys. Parkway Drive are the most inspirational Australian bands because they've just kept doing it, and they've been doing it in the shit for so long in regards to just roughing it. And they did the van stuff, and they've just built themselves up, and they've done it all themselves, it seems, and it's really inspiring. Sorry, it's a bit of a...
No, they've done it under the radar too. Like, I'm not a fan of the band. I'll say that now. I'm not a huge fan of the music. I've reviewed their stuff and I've been favourable because I know they're coming from a really good place and they put on a great show. Apparently, I know a couple of their, and David Dean on the Sunny Coast does some of their promotion, and he doesn't go into a lot of the detail, but apparently they reinvest a lot of their gate earnings or what have you in the show itself. So they've got a lot of stuff going on. It's like a huge production. I'm going to fork out $300 to watch Kiss down at the Gold Coast soon, and you do it because you got to do it. I went and saw Paul McCartney, so I sort of figure all these bands I've got to sort of watch. But the point is, Parkway are in their late 30s or early 40s. I think they're younger than me, those guys. Right. And they're going to be here for 30 or something years more. They are, them and the Sabatons and stuff. The Judas Priest, Metallica's, Slayer's gone. We know that. I don't know how long Dave Mustaine can continue going on for because they're tuning down like, I think 1 or 1.5 whole steps at the moment to cater for his voice.
Right.
When you listen to the stuff. And Dirk Verburen's a lovely fella. I've spoken to him before. He's Soilworks drummer, who's now Megadeth drummer, has been for some time. But it's a bit of a Megadeth's a collective in a way these days. It's not just a Dave thing. All of the guys are singing. Yeah. I think these days have sort of helped Dave I've watched all the latest stuff anyway on the
Right.
European festivals that have opened up. But it's the Metallica thing, the Iron Maiden thing, even the Megadeth thing to a lesser extent. I've loved these bands deeply, appreciated these bands for a long time, but I have been at a point for a long time. When I say a long time, a couple of years now, where I do the new music shows because I want people to know that there is new music out there and it doesn't suck. It is worth listening to. I occasionally hear people say there's no good new music out there, and I'm just like, I can't help you. If you say that, you're just being lazy, really.
Yeah, I agree. We're spoiled. Well, I can speak for the Australian scene. We're spoiled for choice of good music. There are not too many. There are so many talented bands.
In a way, there's too many because you've only got a finite amount of time on top of your life, haven't you?
That's true. It's and a lot of people wanting to do the same thing, and you got to, as an artist, you got to find yourself a unique way to get yourself in front of more people or other people or the same amount of people. But there's a lot to go through. I'll say that for sure.
Mate, we've given people heaps of content on this one. If you're cool with everything being released, I am.
Look, there's more than a few times that I've probably rambled on and told everyone how much I love Metallica, and I'm not afraid of that, Andrew. So,
more power to you, brother.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I don't judge, by the way. I just, it's always, I like different points of view. I do. I enjoy, I'm not one of those people who, the only time I've never had any issues in the podcast, it's just when you get people who are uneducated and who are ideologues.
Yeah, for sure.
Political or personal, or they follow things like they're fanboys. That's a different, you're just an appreciator. You have like what I say, a deep appreciation for the band, and more power to you.
I think it's what's weird, because there's probably other bands out there that I'll go, nah, that album really didn't do anything for me or wasn't any different to anything else or whatever. I think Metallica was just the first band that I really connected with and was like, for a lot of people, was just like, holy shit. And then just to see their career as like retrospectively and then seeing what they're doing now, you can just kind of see where you can see the human element in it for me. Like you can see that where they didn't give a shit and where they did give a shit and what they wanted to do. And you could just see, I feel a lot of people say like they do a lot of things for money, and we all work. So that's fair enough. If you want to do it for money, that's great.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with anybody doing that, bands or otherwise. I mean, what do people expect people to do? Eat dirt?
Yeah, well, exactly. But I just
yeah.
And they've probably got plenty of it. But like, if you do something for 40 years, you're bound to do something that's not perfect. And a part of being an artist, no matter if you're Metallica, no matter if you're doing anything, you're going to have that shit time at some point, and something's not going to hit with someone. So I just really, I guess what I really admire in that is like, there's just so many different things that you can like and not like. It's great having that choice. I'm not a huge fan. I don't really connect with Slayer, for example.
Oh my God, really? Well, we should talk about that because I mean, they had 3 albums that are all time. Really, you haven't gotten to South of Heaven and Seasons and
it's not that
Rain and Blood.
It's not that I don't enjoy it or I think it's shit. I just because it's uneducated to begin with. It's not knowing a full. It's not knowing their full back catalogue and not fully getting into it. But there's something about I like the main song, the hits or whatever, the main classics, but there's something about it that just didn't connect in regards to the career side and the different moves that they made. I didn't really see that happen. And that's...
they've only got 3 albums that I think you should listen to. I'll be clear on that. I'm the same. Look, Metallica got 2, obviously, Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning. Slayer have got Seasons in the Abyss, Rain in Blood, and South of Heaven.
Right.
Okay, there's plenty of people that disagree with me, but I think a lot of people would agree with me on this. Iron Maiden have got the most. They got 5.
Yeah,
so
right.
all of the albums from Number of the Beast up to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And then Megadeth are just too patchy. I love Megadeth to death. I really do, but every album sounds a bit too different for me to sort of recommend one over the other, except to say Rust in Peace is probably the best thrash metal album ever.
Okay.
I'll say that. Anthrax, God help you. I have no idea where you'd start with Anthrax because they're so if I said Megadeth, Apache, Anthrax, I don't even know. I'm kind of agreeing with a lot of people that where they might not they're not really a fair inclusion that's in the big four. I think maybe Testament, should be in there over them. Yeah. I don't know. I think so. I mean, Testament were patchy too. They lost a lot of members and stuff, and they weren't consistent. But I don't know. Anthrax just thrashed by numbers at point. And I'm talking about some of their 80s stuff too. I really like the John Bush stuff, but it's not really thrash.
Yeah. Look, I think it really all just comes down. It comes down to education of knowing the full. You really got to get yourself deep into a band to know what hits with you and what doesn't. So, if we ever do this again, Andrew, I'll make it a promise that I'll listen to those 3 Slayer albums.
Look, I'll wrap things up, but before I let you go, can you tell people where they can go? And I always make a point of saying this with the Australian bands. Where they can, what can they do to support you the most? Is it buy merch, that sort of thing? So can you tell people where they can go to do that?
Sure. primitiveaus.com is our website / web store where you can get T-shirts. We've got pre-orders for the new EP out August 12 for T-shirts and CDs. So if by chance the song interests you at all, please pick something up. It goes a long way, and it reinvests the month in the rehearsal room. So anything we can sort of get back to support the machine going, that's great. In regards to our socials, obviously we really want to stay connected with everyone. So as much as I was complaining about it before, I still do love it, and people who share all of our stuff and make the effort to talk to us, I think is an amazing thing. So I really want to make sure that is known. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are our big ones. That's all Primitive AUS. And obviously the Spotify's and the Apple Music's. They're I mean, look, Spotify especially is essentially a resume on how you're going as a band. So to get the monthly listeners
very
up,
well put.
Still trying to figure out, how to get on those, how to get on a playlist, but yeah, just check us out on all the things that and all your preferred streaming platforms, and we appreciate the interest. Absolutely.
Sweet, no worries, mate. Been a pleasure.
I really appreciate your time, and this was a very fun chat. And thank you for your interest for the band as well. It's something we want to make sure we get out to as many people as possible. So, and you're helping us with that. So, I really appreciate your interest.
No, my pleasure, mate. Great band, killer EP, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Cheers, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Thanks, bro. No worries.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in there. I reckon Tim and I could have talked for the rest of the night about Metallica, and the seed might be planted for us to do something to collaborate a bit later on and to take our conversation ever further about the biggest heavy metal band of all time. Now, if you like that chat, there are many more just like it over at scarsandguitars.com. And if you like listening, maybe you like reading, because I've written a book. Scars and Guitars, Volume 1, Conversations from the World of Heavy Metal or Hard Rock and Beyond. Click on the link in the banner on the website. You'll be taken to a marketplace of your choice where you can download a sample. And if you do complete the purchase, please let me know, because I want to thank you personally. On that note, I've got some more information to share with you about the book, but before we go there, I will bid you a fond farewell now. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. It is a very goodbye for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Cold Chamber and why the band will never return.
If you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Cold Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, you know, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, you know, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
You know, my name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.